There's something unnerving about shallow dives. People think deep water is scarier, but they're wrong. At 50 meters down, your mind braces for the alien. But at 25? You expect the familiar, and when it isn't, that's when it gets inside your head. The job was routine. Inspect a damaged segment of a decommissioned oil pipeline off the Gulf Coast, mark it, and photograph the stress points. The water was clear that morning, calm enough to see the surface from below. But the moment I descended, something felt wrong. Not panic, just a cold, subtle wrongness. Like walking into a room and realizing something's been moved. I noticed it first in the silence. Underwater is never quiet. There's always a current hum, your own bubbles, the distant snap of shrimp. But that day, it was just still. My own breathing sounded too close. Even the water around me felt thicker, slower. Every movement dragged, like I was swimming through syrup. I landed beside the pipe, half buried in silt and barnacles. The metal was old, scabbed with rust, maybe 50 meters long. I ran a hand along its length, preparing to plant the first marker. That's when I felt it, cold, biting cold, radiating off the pipe. Not water cold. Not metal cold. Refrigeration cold. A chill that made my fingers ache inside the gloves. I pulled my hand back, more confused than alarmed. Maybe a thermocline? Maybe residual pressure in the pipe? I radioed surface, but the comms were fuzzy, patchy. That happens sometimes this close to the seabed, mineral interference. But the static sounded strange. Pulsing, rhythmic. Like breath. I moved further down, keeping one hand on the pipe. At 7 meters in, I saw it. A smear on the algae-coated steel, faint but unmistakable. 4 curved streaks, the length of my forearm. Not damage. Not corrosion. Imprints. Like fingers. I stared, unsure. Divers sometimes leave marks, sure, but we wear gloves. This was skin. Human. I looked around instinctively. Empty water. No shadows. But the feeling returned, heavier this time, like being watched. I touched the print again, and my glove stuck. Not caught, stuck. Like the surface of the pipe had suction, or like something had wrapped from inside and was pressing back. I yanked my hand free, kicking up silt, and when it cleared, the print was gone. Just algae now. My heart kicked up. I checked my tether, still connected, but the line felt tighter, like it had caught. I turned to follow it back and stopped cold. There was someone in the water. Maybe 10 meters off. Upright. Motionless. Not drifting. Not rising. Just there. No tank. No bubbles. No gear. Just a shape, humanoid, slightly blurred in the water's refraction. I blinked, expecting it to vanish. It didn't. It hung there like a corpse suspended in syrup. I whispered, "Who the hell?" The figure began to move. Slowly, purposefully. Toward me. I backed up, heart pounding, reaching for my line. "Surface, do you copy?" "I've got." Static. The whispering returned, louder now, under the crackle. I could swear it said, "Stay." My tether tugged sharp. Not current. A pull. I turned back toward the pipeline. Something was brushing my leg. I looked down. A glove. Just one. Old, bloated, wrapped in seaweed, fingers curling around my ankle. I kicked and it let go. By the time I looked back, the figure was closer. 5 meters now. Still silent. Still watching. And I realized something. I hadn't seen it blink. Not once. I bolted. I didn't think. I swam. Kicked backward, gasping inside my helmet, hands fumbling for the tether. The figure was following, slower than I expected, but steady. I couldn't see its face, just a pale suggestion of eyes, a hint of motionless limbs drifting too straight, too still. It wasn't swimming. It was just moving. I reached the tether anchor, clipped in my emergency ascent hook, and squeezed the trigger. The winch on the boat should have reeled me up fast. But nothing happened. "Surface, manual ascent not responding," I barked. Manual. Pull me. Pull me now. More static. The whispering came again, closer. Not from the comms. Inside the helmet. I could feel the words in the metal, like vibration. Like something was pressing lips to the shell of my suit and speaking into it. Not yet. I nearly vomited. I scrambled along the pipe, hoping for a rise in the seabed, something to climb. My lights caught another imprint, longer, deeper, stretched into claw-like grooves as if someone, or something, had been dragged. And then my glove brushed something soft. It floated up beside me, a diver's mask. Cracked. Covered in silt. A name scratched faintly into the rubber. Coleman. That was the last guy who'd serviced this stretch, back in '92. Supposedly died in a rip current. Body never recovered. I stared at the mask, transfixed. It had no algae. No barnacles. It looked fresh. A flicker passed behind it. I turned. The figure was gone. Nothing but the green haze and my own bubbles. I spun around again, fast enough to knock my light askew. The edge of the beam caught something, movement above me. Not rising, descending. It was above me now. I kicked off the pipeline, rising slowly, jerking the tether in panic tugs. I still couldn't get through to the surface. The comms were hissing now, steady, loud, like a scream buried beneath water. Something was being said, repeated over and over, but distorted. I caught a phrase, something like, "Wasn't finished." I didn't understand. Then I saw my own shadow on the seabed. Not cast by me. Cast by something between me and the surface. I froze. It was right above me. Just a shape. Arms stretched out, limbs too long. Head tilted. Floating directly over mine, as if watching from inches away. And in that moment, I felt something inside my helmet shift. Not the air. Not pressure. It was a sensation. Like breath. Like something exhaled inside with me. I screamed. Bubbles surged upward. I pulled my emergency tank valve, just yanked it open to create lift. It wasn't safe. I didn't care. I rocketed upward, arms crossed, praying not to embolize. The water thinned. Light returned. The figure didn't follow. I broke the surface screaming. Hands yanked me into the boat. I remember someone shouting, dragging off my helmet. The sky was gray. I was shaking uncontrollably. They said I was only down for 23 minutes. I didn't speak for 2 days. When I finally told them what I saw, they all gave me the same look. That mix of concern and disbelief you learn to recognize fast in this job. But the part that keeps me up now, years later, isn't the figure or the whispering or the mask. It's what I found in my suit after. Inside the left leg, something had been stuffed down by my ankle. I pulled it out in the Deccan room, thinking it was seaweed. It was a glove. Old. Bloated. Still wet. My name was stitched inside. I didn't plan on becoming a diver. I was a geologist, mostly. Contracted for seabed mapping and sampling on offshore platforms. But sometimes, when you're the only guy certified for mixed gas, you get sent down whether you're ready or not. This one job was north of Scotland, near an abandoned rig called Vinter 6. Supposedly decommissioned years ago, but there was a survey anomaly, something showing up on sonar. The company wanted eyes on it. That meant me. I was told it would be simple. Drop in, check the anomaly, log coordinates, surface. 20 minutes tops. What they didn't mention was the temperature. Just a few degrees above freezing. Visibility was maybe 2 meters. Everything below me was a featureless slope of mud and rocks, the occasional rusted scrap. Nothing alive. No fish. No movement. About 15 minutes in, I saw it. At first, I thought it was a shadow. A sudden cut in the seafloor. But when I drifted closer, I realized it wasn't a crevice. It was a wall. Flat, smooth stone, perfectly vertical. Completely unnatural. It stretched left and right beyond the beam of my headlamp. I hovered near it, confused. There was no documentation of any structure here. Then I noticed the symbols. They were faint, etched into the stone, worn down by water and time. Spirals, triangles, something like runes. I snapped photos, careful not to touch the surface. The stone gave off a faint vibration, like a low hum, barely felt through my gloves. I radioed topside. Found a structure. Not metallic. Looks artificial. Need more time. No response. Just a soft hiss, then a pop, like someone had unplugged a mic. I tried again. Nothing. Then the temperature dropped. I don't mean slowly. I mean instantly. My gauge dropped 4 degrees in a blink. My teeth clacked. The suit's heater kicked in full blast. I turned my light back to the wall. There was a hole now. A doorway? A tunnel? I didn't see it before. Just a black rectangle in the middle of the stone, tall enough to stand in. No seams, no hinges. Just there. I should have turned back. But I didn't. Curiosity, adrenaline, whatever it was, I pushed forward. Not in, just closer. That's when my light flickered. It didn't go out, just dimmed, pulsing. Like something was interfering. Then I noticed my tether, my safety line, had gone slack. I turned. The line was straight behind me, pulled taut, vibrating like it was caught on something. I gave it a tug. No give. I followed it with my eyes, but the silt made it impossible to see more than a few feet. Then I felt a pull. Not strong. Just a gentle tug. Like someone testing the weight. I grabbed my cutter instinctively. I couldn't risk being dragged. As I reached for the line, my light flicked again, and something passed in front of me. I say something, because I didn't see a body. Just the absence of light. Like a shape moving through smoke. Then it was gone. My hands were shaking. Another tug. Harder. Then a voice in my headset, soft, almost too low to catch. "Why are you here?" I froze. "Identify yourself." Silence. Then, "It isn't for you." My heart was racing. I tried my ascent signal. No response. Another tug. This time it pulled me forward, toward the hole in the wall. I cut the line. Let it drift. And just as it went slack, I saw the tip of a gloved hand vanish into the dark. I didn't move. Not at first. The glove had vanished, and the water was still again. But that hole, black and silent, remained. My tether floated beside me now, limp and useless, severed at the blade. My ascent was no longer safe. I'd have to free swim to the drop line, assuming I could even find it in this soup. But the wall. I couldn't stop looking at it. There was something unnatural about the geometry. Not just the fact that it was perfectly vertical, but the way it didn't distort. Light underwater always bends, refracts. But the wall absorbed it. It looked flat in a way that felt wrong. Like it wasn't submerged at all. Like it was waiting. I hovered back, thinking maybe I could mark the spot and return with support. But then I heard it again. Wait. Clear. Direct. Not through the headset. From behind me. I turned so fast I nearly twisted my tank loose. Nothing. Just silt and cold. I checked my gauge. 10 minutes of safe time left before decompression. I looked back at the hole. Now it was glowing. A faint pulse of dull red, like backlit coals in the shape of a rectangle. It didn't reflect in the water. It seemed to bleed outward, like the stone itself was giving off the color. I lifted my camera and snapped a photo. The second I did, everything changed. The water around me churned, bubbles rising in a silent spiral. Not from me. Not from anything I could see. The wall began to shift, like it was breathing, flexing just beneath the surface. The symbols on the stone flared, then faded again. And something stepped out. I used stepped, because that's what it looked like. A figure, humanoid in shape, but made of the same dark stone. Or coated in it. The edges of its form weren't solid. More like wet ash held together by current. It had no face. Just a suggestion of one. No limbs, just lengths of weightless black trailing behind it like a shroud. It didn't swim. It drifted. Straight toward me. My limbs wouldn't respond. My body screamed to move, but it was like the water had thickened. My joints felt slow, syrupy. My breath grew short. The thing stopped just a meter away. Then, in my helmet, a sound like scraping metal. Not a word. Just intention. Like it was showing me something directly in my head. I saw a flash, brief, violent, of a man underwater, suspended upside down. Arms out. No tank. No gear. Just staring. Mouth wide in a scream that never made sound. His eyes were mine. The vision vanished. My HUD blinked red. 2 minutes left. I bolted. I don't remember swimming. I only remember the sudden rush of cold and light as I broke the surface, screaming. The crew dragged me onto the rig, shouting. My suit was torn across the back, but there was no sign of damage to the tanks. No blood. No impact. When they pulled my camera logs, the last image was blank. Pure black. Except for a timestamp, midnight. I quit the job that week. Months later, a geophysicist friend emailed me. Said he saw something strange in that same area. A line, perfectly straight, appearing on sonar scans and then disappearing. He joked about lost cities. I didn't laugh. Sometimes at night, I still dream of that wall. Not underwater, but in a dark room. Lit from behind. And always that whisper. It isn't for you. There's a rule in diving, never surface too fast. That's how you get the bends. Nitrogen bubbles in your blood, rupturing you from inside. But what they don't talk about is what happens when you surface too slow. When you linger. When something follows you back. This happened on a saturation job off the coast of Namibia. Deep dive support, working from a bell at 120 meters. We were on day 16 inside the habitat chamber, 3 of us living in a metal can the size of a walk-in closet. Shift rotations every 6 hours. Nothing to do between except sleep, eat, and listen to each other breathe. The bell took us down in pairs. That day, I went with Krieger, a German guy with a military background and zero sense of humor. Our job was to secure scaffolding around a blown-out pipeline. Routine. We were 4 hours into the shift when Krieger went quiet. We were mid-task, tightening clamps, when I realized his hands had stopped moving. I looked over. He was staring off into the dark, his lamp pointed at nothing. I radioed. You good? No answer. Then, in a whisper, There's someone out here. I followed his light. Empty water. Just silt and steel. You're seeing shadows, I said. Focus. But he didn't move. Helmet fogged, he mumbled. Thought I saw, never mind. We finished the job in silence. But he stayed off. Jumpier. Breathing faster. Glancing over his shoulder every few seconds like he was expecting someone. Back in the bell, I pressed him. He wouldn't talk. Just stared at the hatch. We rose slow. 50 minutes to the surface. At minute 28, the light inside the bell flickered. Just a blink. Krieger stiffened. Did you feel that? Feel what? He didn't answer. The air got heavy. Not pressure-wise. Just wrong. Like the feeling in a room after someone dies, quiet in the wrong places. Then the wall behind me made a sound. A knock. 3 slow knocks. Krieger jumped to his feet, eyes wide behind his visor. Someone's out there. We're 90 meters down. He started shaking. Reached for the hatch lever. I stopped him. Don't open that, I said, heart pounding. You're not thinking straight. He backed off but kept staring, muttering to himself in German. I looked at the wall. Perfectly still. I convinced myself it was thermal expansion. Bells creak. That's normal. That's all it was. Then came the second sound. Not knocking. Scraping. Long, deliberate drags across the outer shell. I froze. Krieger was whispering prayers now, rocking slightly. The scrape circled the bell, slow, like fingers tracing the shape of a box. When it passed behind me, I felt a cold spot bloom in my lower back, like the steel had dropped 10 degrees. We lost lighting for 3 seconds. In that darkness, I swear I saw something move across the viewport. Not a shadow, something closer. A smear of color, skin tone, and a face. Only it wasn't Krieger's reflection. Too narrow. Wrong eyes. And it smiled. Lights came back. Nothing there. We surfaced in silence. But Krieger didn't come out. He just sat on the bench, eyes fixed on the wall. When we opened the hatch, he screamed. Clawed at us like he was drowning. Took 4 guys to pin him down. He kept repeating something over and over. Don't breathe in. Don't let it in. They put him on a medical chopper. I never saw him again. Krieger was gone the next morning. Flown to a hospital in Cape Town, I was told. Stress reaction. That's how they filed it. I overheard the medic say it looked like nitrogen narcosis, but I knew better. We were in mixed gas, properly monitored. He wasn't narked. He was afraid. That shift ended without incident. I finished decompression and was cleared. But I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen. That face through the viewport. Not imagined, seen. Too detailed for a trick of the eye. And too close. I tried to write it off as fatigue. Chamber time messes with your head. Long hours in recycled air, stale food, no horizon. But the next dive proved it wasn't in my head. 2 days later, I was back in the Bell, this time with a guy named Logan, former Navy, quiet, serious. I hadn't told him what happened. He brought it up first. We were halfway down when he asked, "This Bell ever feel crowded to you?" I looked up. "You mean cramped?" He shook his head. "No. Like it's not just us." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because in that moment I felt it too. A weight in the space. No sound. Just presence. We dropped to 118 meters, bottomed out near a section of rusted riser. The water was clearer that day. We could see farther. And that made it worse. 15 minutes into the task, Logan stopped. He was hovering midwater, staring at a dark patch off the slope. I followed his gaze. Nothing there. Then he clicked his mic twice, our signal for "Look again." So I did. And this time I saw it. A man. No gear. No bubbles. Just hovering in the gloom, arms outstretched. Like he was treading water, but still. Frozen. I blinked and he was gone. I turned to Logan. "Did you?" "I saw him," he said. "Same one from the Bell, yeah?" I didn't ask how he knew. We finished the dive fast. Neither of us spoke on the way up. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Krieger's words. Don't breathe in. Don't let it in. I thought I understood. I didn't. Not until the third dive. This time I was alone. Solo inspection dive, 20-minute max conditions were clean. The bell was silent. Too silent. The second I reached the structure, I knew it was watching me. I didn't see it, but I felt it. A pinpoint of cold behind me, always behind me. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. Real pressure. Gloved. I turned. No one. But something had changed in my suit. The air felt thick. Off. I checked the gauge. It was reading normal. But my breath came slow. Heavy. I coughed. There was a taste in the air. Not bad. Not chemical. Sweet. Like sugar water. That's when I understood. Whatever it was, it didn't live down there. It rode up. Waited in the bell. Waited for someone to breathe deep. Maybe when we sleep. Maybe when we let our guard down. That's how it gets in. Not all at once. Just a little each dive. It's not a ghost. Not a demon. Nothing like that. It's an idea. A presence without weight, moving through lungs, living in air. And once you surface, you don't notice, until it's already part of your breath. That's why Krieger snapped. He didn't go mad. He went hollow. I left that job the next day. Haven't dived since. But sometimes, when I'm lying in bed, eyes closed, I feel the shape of the bell around me. And I swear, just before I drift off, I taste something sweet. The worst part of recovery dives isn't the dead body. It's what's left around it. I used to work with the SAR team in Florida, search and recovery, mostly drowned boaters, hurricane victims, sometimes just lost fishermen. The job wore people down. But I liked it. I was good at it. Until the bridge job. We were called out after a tropical storm had torn through the area. A car had gone off an old bridge, the kind they're always scheduled to replace, but never do. 2 people inside, both unaccounted for. The current was rough. Visibility worse. They sent me down solo. The car had landed on its roof in about 30 feet of water, half buried in silt. I found it fast. One headlight still glowed weakly, flickering like it was struggling to stay lit. It made the whole area feel like an aquarium exhibit, murky, green-tinted, filled with slow-motion dust. I circled the wreck, careful not to disturb the sediment. The windows were busted. The doors were bent open, like someone had tried to claw their way out. But there was no one inside. That didn't make sense. They'd gone in less than 8 hours ago. The current wasn't strong enough to sweep them far. I followed the slope of the riverbed downstream, searching. That's when I found her. A woman. Mid-30s maybe. Suspended upright in the water, her dress fluttering like kelp. Arms at her sides. No movement. No struggle. I approached slowly. She didn't react. Her eyes were open, but lifeless. I reached out to tag her vest, standard ID protocol, and as soon as I touched her, her head snapped toward me. Mouth still closed. Eyes unblinking. But her body turned, as if tethered to me by invisible wire. I recoiled. She didn't follow. But I could feel her watching. Not in that vague, poetic way people say. I felt her gaze like pressure in my helmet, a low throb behind the eyes. I backed off. Marked the coordinates. Radioed surface. Subject located. No response. Sending buoy. I turned to deploy the marker, and that's when I saw it. Another figure. 20 feet behind me, barely visible. Upright. Still. Not moving. Another body? No. Something felt wrong. The size. The posture. It didn't drift. I looked back at the woman. Gone. Not drifted, gone. I spun. Light scanning back and forth. Nothing but green murk. I hit the ascent button on my tether. I wasn't about to investigate further. As I rose, I glanced down one last time. The woman was back. Only now she was closer. And the second figure? Closer too. The way they hovered. It didn't look like drowning. It looked like waiting. I surfaced fast. The medics were waiting, asking questions. I couldn't answer. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't unclip myself. They sent another diver down, a guy named Petey. Brave as hell. He laughed it off, said I'd probably seen a couple manatees. But when he came back up 20 minutes later, his face was pale under the mask. He didn't say anything. Just sat on the edge of the boat, dripping. I asked if he saw them. He didn't respond. But later that night, he knocked on my motel room door. Said he couldn't sleep. Said he kept feeling like his lungs were too full, like he was breathing water. Said he saw something in the wreck. Not a body. Just fingers, curled around the steering wheel. And someone, in the back seat, smiling. Petey quit the next morning. Didn't even pack up his gear, just left it in the truck and drove north. I don't blame him. I stayed another night, mostly because I couldn't convince myself it was real. Had to be exhaustion. River illusions. Something in the helmet. Still, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes I saw her, floating, turning, staring. There was something wrong with her pupils. Not white. Not rolled back. Just deep. Like looking down a well. The next day, they sent me back. The official story was that the male passenger hadn't been located. The current might have carried him farther. I tried to protest. Told them about the figures. Left out the part about the movement. Didn't want a psych eval on my record. They shrugged it off. Told me I was close last time. They trusted my instincts. That made it worse. I went down mid-morning. The light filtered through tannin-stained water, turning the river gold brown, like steep tea. My descent was smooth. I kept my head down and my tether tight. I passed the wreck again, exact same angle, exact same debris trail. And there she was. Same spot. Same pose. Upright, arms loose, eyes wide. But something had changed. Her mouth was open. Not wide. Just enough. Like she was speaking. I stayed well back. Radioed surface. Second subject located. Approach negative. Standing by. Then something floated up behind her. Not swam. Floated. Another figure. Smaller. Male. Face down. Drifting like a puppet with no strings. I knew immediately. It was the man we were missing. I moved in cautiously. His clothes were torn. One shoe missing. But his hands, they were raised. Not limp. Reaching. I stopped. I swear to you, he turned. Not his body. Just his head. Slowly. As if tracking my presence. Then came the sound. A hiss in the helmet. Not static. Not bubbles. Breathing. I checked my valve. Gauges were steady. But the hiss was growing. In. Out. Ragged. Not mine. I looked around, lights spinning. Murk swirling. The figures didn't move. But the air inside my helmet grew colder, and the hiss became a whisper. Don't float away. A phrase. Quiet. Sad. Not threatening. That made it worse. I turned to ascend, and my tether pulled tight. Not jammed. Held. Something below me had gripped the line. I spun. Shone my light down. There was a third figure now. Close. I couldn't see its face, just a white shirt, bloated and waving in the current. Its hands gripped my tether with fingers that bent the wrong way. It started climbing up. Not fast. Just inevitable. I cut the tether. Kicked hard. I rose through the gloom, light growing above. I didn't look down. Didn't want to know how close they'd gotten. I surfaced alone. They pulled me in, asked the same questions. I lied. Said nothing new. Said the man was located but lost in silt. I was done. That night, I sat in my motel bathtub with the water off, suit still dripping beside me, mask on the floor. And I heard it again. Not from outside. Not from memory. Inside the room. That whisper. Don't float away. I didn't dive again after that job. But sometimes I dream I'm still underwater, sinking slowly, light fading above. And far below, three figures wait, their eyes fixed upward, unmoving, patient. Not angry. Just lonely. And the last thing I feel before I wake is something cold curling around my ankle. Pulling down. We were mapping a sinkhole off the Yucatan shelf, one of those oceanic blue holes that drop straight into blackness. No current, no coral, just a vertical tunnel into the earth. They called it Cenote Tres Cien, but no one had touched it in years. Too deep. Too strange. My job was sonar mapping. We'd hover the drone about 10 meters from the wall, run a pass, then stitch the data. Routine. Boring, even. Except on the third day, the drone pinged something unexpected. A tone. Sonar returns are usually chirps, echoes, stutters. This was different. It echoed back, perfectly. Not a distortion. A tone. Smooth, symmetrical. Like a whistle played back on tape. And it only happened once. The team thought it was a hardware fault. I didn't. The water inside that hole was dead quiet. No fish. No debris. Just vertical silence. Something about that tone didn't feel like an error. The dive lead, Mira, asked me to take a closer look. Not with the drone, with my own eyes. It didn't sit right with me. We had video. We had depth logs. But she insisted. The gear's clean. The readings are weird. I want a diver's look. So I went. I was weighted for a negative descent, slow sink, no kicking. The sinkhole's mouth was 50 meters wide, and I floated down like a leaf in syrup. My light was the only thing cutting through the water, tracing rock walls that looked unnaturally smooth. At 70 meters, I passed the shelf edge and the world fell away. Below me, infinite dark. That's when I heard it. A tone. Soft, clean, right through my helmet. No reverb. No distortion. Not a noise, a note. It didn't hurt. It felt familiar. Like something from childhood. I checked my depth, 74 meters. Not deep enough for narcosis. My air mix was solid. But the tone kept going. And then it stopped. All at once. Like someone had turned it off mid-note. That's when I saw the first mark. A perfect circle etched into the stone. Clean as a stencil. Maybe half a meter wide. No marine life. Nowhere. Just carved there, black, smooth, too exact. I snapped a photo. Moved closer. There were more. Rows of them. Spiraling downward like a helix wrapping the inner wall. Every few meters, another ring. Some smaller. Some large enough to swim through. They weren't coral. They weren't erosion. They were made. I descended farther. The tone returned, quieter now, lower. It was responding. I say, responding, because every time I moved down, it shifted pitch. Matched my rhythm. Not echo. Not bounce. Call and answer. At 92 meters I stopped. Something was below. Not light. Not sound. Movement. It was faint, like a shimmer in heat. But it rose steadily, coiling upward, slow as breath. It wasn't a creature. Not exactly. It was space bending. The way oil warps water. I didn't move. I couldn't. Then, from below me, a voice, not in my ears. In my body. A tone that turned into words. Why are you echoing? I didn't understand. The shimmer stopped. Hung motionless. Then the pressure changed. Not water pressure, inside my suit. My head buzzed like I'd stood too fast. Another voice, overlapping the first. This isn't your shape. And then I saw them. Eyes. Dozens of them. Opening along the stone spiral. Not eyes that blinked. Eyes that waited. The eyes didn't move. Just hovered, dozens of them, arranged along the spiraled walls. Too far apart to belong to one thing. Too deliberate to be random. Some were vertical. Others sideways. And all of them were open. I couldn't look away. I tried ascending, thumbed the winch on my line, but nothing happened. My depth readout blinked erratically. The air tasted wrong. Not stale. Not bad. Just muted. Like breathing through a blanket. Below me, the shimmer returned. The water bent around it, a slow bloom of distortion rising from the dark. I raised my light, but it flickered and died. No pop. No short. It just quit. In the sudden dark, the tone came back. Low. Deep enough to vibrate my chest. Then the voice again. Inside me. Not yet. Still forming. I tried to scream. No one heard. My mouth moved inside the helmet, but the sound dissolved. One of the eyes blinked. Just one. Then another. Far below. And I realized they weren't looking at me. They were watching the shimmer. Something was coming through. I turned, kicking upward, but the water resisted. Not pressure. Not gravity. Like syrup. Like climbing through breath. Then something touched my hand. I jerked, expecting kelp, debris, anything natural. But it wasn't that. It was flesh. Warm. Too warm. Fingers that gripped mine with recognition. Not aggression. Not panic. Like holding hands. My suit's internal alarm chimed, oxygen drop. I checked the feed. Full tank. Then what was I breathing? The voice returned. But now it wasn't asking. It was remembering. You were here before. Images flooded my brain. Not memories. Memories that weren't mine. A man in a stone chamber. Water pouring through the ceiling. A scream that never reached the surface. Bones on the floor of the cenote, still dressed. Sunlight overhead. Then gone. Then black. I felt my suit tighten. Something pulling inward. The shimmer had reached me now. And it wasn't one thing. It was a door. The stone spiral wasn't natural. It was built. Not for people. For something else. The eyes began to close. One by one. The voice grew faint. You are not shaped for this. Then I fell. Not physically. Not deeper. Just out. The water around me vanished, replaced by silence. Not dry. Not wet. Like being in the moment before sound starts. And then, I was back. On the deck of the support ship. Crew shouting. Hands on my helmet. Sun burning my eyelids. I'd surfaced on my own. No tether. No winch. My tank was dry. My computer was blank. No depth log. No timestamp. They told me I was gone 6 minutes. I don't remember surfacing. Don't remember rising. But my hands were raw, scraped, bleeding. Like I'd clawed my way out. They didn't find the sonar drone. Didn't find the rings. Said it was an error. A data loop. You were too deep. You blacked out. But I know better. Because 2 days later, back at the port motel, I found something in my dive bag. Not mine. A stone. Flat. Smooth. Etched with a perfect circle. Still wet. Still warm. I keep it in a drawer now. Wrapped in lead. I don't sleep near it. And I never listen to echoes. Not anymore. Because some places don't reflect. They remember.